Hi, I'm trying to fix something. Just a second.
No worries. Oh, I have a song in my head and I'm really trying not to start singing it because that would just be mean.
Seeing like nobody's listening.
No, that's not true because we're recording right now.
Well, pretend nobody is. Just go for it.
Nope, not gonna happen. I'll spare everyone from my summary. Bloom!
I'm here.
Yay, you're wearing your dress.
Okay. I do have to show you.
Okay, I'm just letting you know we are recording.
I'll send you pictures.
Just FYI, we have an audio. So yeah, we were.
Oh, you look so cute.
Thank you. Yes, I'm really digging the whole Sailor Moon look. I'm like, yes. Can you
I love it.
How are you?
I'm doing well. We are staying in this Saturday and I'm so happy.
Oh, good. Excellent. I love what you're contributing today. My goodness, I'm so excited. I
I'm
cannot
so
believe
excited.
you whipped that together.
Girl, I told you I'm crafty.
Seriously, like my hope for our Sabbat shares just like escalated like to an incredible degree. I was like, this is gonna be so great.
I told Ben, because I have like a craft room and that's where my altar is. I told my husband, I was like, this is my craft room and my craft room.
Yeah, totally. That's perfect. A perfect place. I love it. Yes, I do like that our practices are considered crafts because
Yes.
I agree. Like I'm in the same boat. I feel like my entire apartment is a craft room, like in the artistic sense.
Yes.
It's just like crafts everywhere.
I have children, and so it makes it hard to have everything everywhere. But I will have to send you pictures. I did start to decorate my house for Halloween, and I'm doing a whole Harry Potter theme.
Cute.
And it is everything.
We did that at my office once. We had an extreme cubicle makeover challenge, but that's something we used to do every year. But this particular year, we did teams. So it was who could create the most spooky neighborhood.
Oh my gosh, so cute.
So our team, we did Diagon Alley. So we had Ollivander's Lawn Shop and like the owl shop where you bought your familiar and like all kinds of things. Like the candy shop, like we had all these different things. It was really fun. We totally won.
I love that. I told Ben, like, our neighborhood does like a huge house decorating competition and for Halloween and for Christmas. And I want to do a whole Harry Potter theme. Like I want to somehow put a car in the tree and have thestrals in the yard and have, like projections in the windows of like the ghosts and I want it.
I love it.
But it's a lot of work.
I just noticed the time, so we got to start.
Okay.
11:01. So silence your phones if you haven't done it already, and welcome. Welcome to Urban Oracle. I'm Neen Puliano. I am the creatrix and owner of Urban Oracle, and I am pumped to have you here as always. let's see, logistics. I'm going to share a few things with you. We have some beautiful people on the call with us today. Our familiar, lovely friends of Miss Bloom. We've got Miss Brumlow and our beautiful Miss Ferguson. So we're super excited to have you here. And we're going to start by, I'm going to share my screen with you. I would like to, share screen. Yep. Okay. So I want to let you know first and foremost how to connect with us. So we're pretty easy to find. You can subscribe to our email list. We only send out 1 or 2 emails a month just to let you know anything new going on, events, training programs, new products, things like that. And you do that by going to our website at urbanoracle.com. Obviously the comma's not in there, but urbanoracle.com, that's how you subscribe to our email list. And as soon as you log into our website, a little pop-up will say, hey, join our email list. So that's really easy to do. Facebook and YouTube, our YouTube channel and Facebook is just at Urban Oracle. Oh, that's not anybody in the waiting room, is it? I don't think so. Okay. On YouTube, that's where you will find the recording of this session today. So all of our Sabbat shares, we record them and then we share them on our YouTube channel after the video is processed. Instagram, we're just at Urban Oracle. Again, very easy to find us. And we do have this online community. We have a private online community. It's kind of like our own private Facebook that we use, not for posting photos of your breakfast and trips you went on and things like that, but it's a place for really thoughtful dialogues. It's a place for people to authentically share what their unique individual practices are, to ask questions, to stimulate discussion and dialogue around different schools of thought, all kinds of things like that. It's a place where we can celebrate and support each other in each other's individual authenticity. So if you would like to participate with us and be a part of our online community, it's free. You just do a request to join by going to this website you see here at https://urb-oracle urb-n-oracle.mn.co/. And it'll have you fill out some questions about why you want to be a part of our community. And then after that, I will connect with you over the phone and we'll just get to know each other better, just to make sure that this is the best group for you, to make sure that I'll be able to lean into some of your goals and your areas of interest so that you're really getting the most out of that community and that group. So I'd really love to connect with you. So if you'd like to join us, check that link out. Everything we're sharing today, we have handouts on them. We've got little PDF files and Word documents and recipes and things like that. So if you would like to have access to the things we're discussing today, we can email you all of these attachments so you can save them and keep them for yourself. We need your email address, which means the best way to do that would be to email me at urbanoracle@gmail.com. So HERBNORACLE@gmail.com. So that's where just in the subject header, if you could just put request for Mabon handout and I'll email you back. Okay, so let's get this rolling. I love to start this Sabbat share off with the history. So I'm going to ask that Miss Katie take it away and tell us a bit about Mabon history. And thank you all so much for being here.
Hello, Neen. Hello, everybody. I really enjoy doing these histories for all of our Sabbats. I'm a bit of a research nerd, so I love to do all this. The history of Mabon, Mabon, pronounced 15 million different ways, like most Sabbats. So Maven is a pagan holiday and one of the 8 Sabbats. It celebrates the autumnal equinox on September 22nd this year in the Northern Hemisphere. It's also known as the second harvest and has been celebrated by many civilizations. The name Mabon comes from the Welsh god who was the son of the Earth Mother goddess, excuse me. Although the name was adapted in the 1970s, and the celebration itself is not originally Celtic. So every group that has celebrated Mabon has a different name for it, but it's all celebrated around the same time, towards the end of September into the first week of October. Mabon marks the halfway point between Letha and Yule. This halfway point happens again at Ostara when days grow longer. Maven is when we see the nights growing longer. Mabon marks the beginning of autumn and the death of the land, but it's also a celebration of life and rebirth. The full moon closest to Mabon is the harvest moon, which honors farmers. So September is also the wine moon when grapes are harvested. So at this time, we also see Dionysus honored, and we see lots of wine and fruit and wonderful celebrations that way. Mythically, Mabon is the day of the year when the god of light is defeated by his twin, the god of darkness. Let's see. Historically, Mabon seemed to be a version of the young huntsman and the divine youth. This is associated with the Romans and with the god Apollo. In Celtic mythos, Mabon was, like the name suggests, the son of the Great Mother, and he disappeared for after 3 days after his birth. It's unknown where he goes, but he is at this time renewing his strength and gaining wisdom to be reborn at Yule. Mabon symbolizes the male side of the harvest and focuses on life, death, rebirth. There's also a couple of really interesting stories tied to Mabon. The story of Demeter and Persephone is tied to the autumn equinox, when Persephone is kidnapped down into the underworld by Hades. The time that she is in the underworld represents Mabon, the darkness, the dying of the land. And when she comes back up at Ostara is when she's this renewal, spring, things like that. That's how those seasons are tied, according to, Greek, Roman mythology. Also, the story of the Sumerian goddess Inanna is tied in with the autumn equinox. Modern druids refer to Mabon as Alban Elfid, which represents the time of balance between light and dark. And really, whatever way you choose to celebrate, the biggest takeaway and the biggest part of the history for Mabon is really just giving thanks for what you have, meditating on the balance within your own life, and honoring your place in the world, honoring the balance between the light and the dark.
Yum. I love it. Thank you, Katie, for that very rich history. That was beautiful. I appreciate that. Okay. Lots to reflect on and lots to think about. I encourage anyone listening to the call to consider taking some notes. While we tend to share things that we find through research, which you might also find the same research out there, we also like to incorporate some original things on our Sabbat calls to give you opportunities to lean into something a little bit extra. So what I'm going to share next is not one of those original things, but I'm going to talk to you about it in a very original way. So there's a really awesome website that is a great place for learning about any type of religion. She's really thorough. I particularly like her site, but it's called learnreligions.com. And Patty Wigington, she writes like all these articles on different rituals and ceremonies and belief systems and crafts and recipes and ways to celebrate. So this particular full moon ritual, or it's also known as the corn moon ritual. The harvest moon is also known as the corn moon. It alternates between the two. I like the word harvest better, but I kind of already put corn moon on the agenda invite, so we're just gonna stick with corn moon. But this particular full moon ritual, she recommends that it's something that's very easy to do, and it's something you can do to celebrate not just the corn moon or harvest moon, but also the blood moon of October and the morning moon of November. So your 3 autumn moons on the full moon is when she's recommending that you could do this particular ceremony. So there's some verbiage in this ceremony that I'm going to shift, and it has to do with the fact that here at Urban Oracle, we talk a lot about relational living versus transactional living. And a way I like to describe that, because most of the way we operate today is through this transactional mindset. It's, if I do this, I get this in return. Or if I give you that, you give me this. And everything seems to be this transaction. And we're not actually connecting and communicating and having a conversation with the things we're interacting with. It's just a give and take scenario without actually having the connection piece involved. And because of that, we're missing out on a lot of beautiful opportunities to really have a deeper experience and cultivate a deeper relationship and earn a deeper relationship with all things that we interact with. And that's not just humans, but animals and nature and the elements and our particular spiritual practices, all of those things. So when it comes to performing rituals and ceremonies, a lot of people rely on the text, like written script of certain rituals and ceremonies to follow in order to quote unquote do their work. Like if I say these lines, I'm performing the ritual. And that's a transactional way of approaching it, which we're all guilty of transactional living. But what I'd like to encourage you to do is look at the overarching ritual or ceremony guidelines, what the words being spoken, look at the overarching meaning of those words, and then speak into that same meaning from your heart and from what that overarching intention means to you and how you would bring that to life and how you relate to those things. So that's what I'm going to encourage you to do, and I'll explain that a little more in detail when we get there, as I describe this ritual as it goes on. And another way to think about it is think about relational living like dating. Okay, when we go on a first date, we put all this extra effort into ourselves. Or when we're on that first date, we're better listeners. We ask really good questions. We're very curious and wanting to know more because we want to know if this is the right fit or not. And our date would be an absolute disaster if we only said the things that we read from Dating for Dummies book. Like if a Dating for Dummies book said these are the things to have in a conversation when you're on a date, and if you just stick to that script and don't deter from it, then you're going to run into a whole bunch of hiccups in the date because people are much more organic than that. Life, everything in existence is way more, it's all organic. And so it doesn't fit in a box. It flows, it moves, it expands, it contracts, it takes detours and offshoots, and it surprises us all the time. So our ability and our fluidity to adapt to those little minutiae changes is what brings and cultivates stronger, more authentic and beautiful relationships within our personal practices, within our connections, and all kinds of things. So now I'm going to talk about the ritual, but that's just a cap on something we really value here at Urban Oracle, and I encourage you to lean into that idea and see how you can put that into use within your own practice. So For this particular ritual, there's some things that you're going to want to need. You're going to want to include quarter candles, which you could, this again, we'll talk about how you might make some changes here. But quarter candles are candles that are colored based on the colors of the 4 cardinal directions. So that means for north, the recommendation is that you use a green candle. For east, you would use yellow. For south, you would use red. And for the west, you would use a blue candle. So you'd have those types of candles. You'd also want to have a cup of wine or cider. And if you're including cakes and ale as part of your offering, then you can place your cakes on an altar that the group would be building as well. So this is a group ritual that you ideally would want to do with 4 people. If you have more than 4, you can create a circle shape for your gathering versus like a person at each direction. And you can also modify this ritual to do as a solitary practice. If you will, you can get creative about it and make it a solitary practice if you'd like. The other things you're going to want is a basket of apples, especially if they're ones you picked yourself. Apples are a huge part of Mabon. I know Katie said Maven. She said it can be pronounced anyway. I say Mabon, whatever. It's all good. Tomato, tomato. Gourds, squashes, small pumpkins to represent abundance and bounty. Again, relational living. What represents abundance and bounty to you? That's what you can bring to your altar. Indian corn. This is often a very symbolic of the polarity of male and female. Again, Mabon, it's about that balance of divine masculine, divine feminine. So what offerings represent that for you? If it's not Indian corn, then that's not what you're going to bring. Colorful leaves to symbolize the changing of the seasons, which should be very easy to find regardless of where you are. And stalks of grain or wheat to represent the final harvest. So for this particular ritual, you would assign each member of the group to call in one element. And the eldest person of the group would also be, if you only have 4, they would also be responsible for calling in spirits. Now each person would stand at their assigned direction, holding their unlit candle and a lighter and or matches, and everyone would be facing the altar. And if there's, so some traditions choose to begin this particular, or choose to call in the elements starting with east, and others prefer north. You do whatever you want, it's your practice. Okay, but this particular ritual that Patty laid out begins with calling in the north quarter element first. So the person in the north, basically they would light their green candle and they'd hold it up to the sky and say, "We call upon the powers of the earth and welcome you to this circle." And then she's got some like lines about calling in the earth. Now this is where I'm going to invite you into relational living. I invite you, after you're stating your intention of we're calling in the earth to join us in this circle, welcoming you into this circle, then state your relationship to earth. What do you value about the earth? And by sharing what you value with the earth, it's a way of you telling the earth how you are grateful to the earth's existence and the earth's participation within your life. So again, like in dating, we give each other compliments to show the other person that we care about them, that we appreciate something about them, and that we're interested in knowing more about them. So what would that look like for you when you're calling in the element of earth? Okay, so lighting the green candle, we call upon the powers of the earth and welcome you to this circle, and then your own relational invitation of gratitude for that earth element. After the green candle's lit, you would place that green candle on the altar in the direction placement of the altar of north. And for any new person on the call, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you wouldn't mind, please muting your microphone. That would be amazing. Thank you so much for being here. All right, now the person to the east would be next to light their yellow candle and hold it to the sky. And again, say, we call upon the powers of air and welcome you into this circle. And then that person would share from their relational perspective about calling in the element of air and what the qualities of air brings to their life. Then that yellow candle would be placed on the altar as well in the direction of east. And then you'd move to the south. That person would light their red candle, holding it up to the sky. We call upon the powers of fire and welcome you to this circle. And they shared their gratitude for how they relate and connect with the element of fire. And the red candle would be placed on the altar in the position of south. And finally, the person to west would light the blue candle, hold it to the sky, and say, we call upon the powers of water and welcome you to this circle. And they would share their relational, their way of relating to the element of water. For spirit, I feel like the initial offerings that you bring to this altar, you can be acknowledging spirit the entire time you're putting those offerings into play. And you can begin or end your elemental call by also welcoming in spirit with all of these offerings, and that the entirety of your ceremony is committed and dedicated to the element of spirit, however feels best to you to do so. And then everyone in that circle would join hands and they'd say, we gather tonight by the light of the moon to celebrate the season and rejoice. Again, lots of creative liberties and freedom here and how you could say that in your own way. So again, it's about how, it's a very simple intention. Y'all are here together under a full moon to honor a change of the season. So that can come out in any way you like. May the next turn of the wheel, that's the Celtic wheel of the year for more shamanistic, shamans and shamanas. You would be talking about the sacred hoop year. Same, but different verbiage. Okay. May the next turn of the wheel bring us love and compassion, abundance and prosperity. Again, you brought those abundance and prosperity offerings to your altar. Fertility and life. We've got that divine masculine, divine feminine. As the moon above, so the earth below, or as above, so below. You know the gist. to your own language. And then you go around the circle one by one. Remember, we brought some wine or juice or cider or ale. You go around the circle, passing the wine or the cider, and each person would take a sip, and they would share something that they're looking forward to in the coming month. Do you hope to manifest financial independence, develop your intuitive powers, deepen your own intuition, or are you perhaps hoping to grow your relationship, continue to practice that relational living? But now is the time when you would state your intentions, and you'd all take turns taking a sip of the juice, the wine, the cider, and going around the circle that way. You take a collective moment of silence to all reflect on the bounty of the season, a bounty of that harvest. And when everyone is ready, you'd either move on to the next ceremony you had planned for that full moon, or such as, working with cakes and ale, or by drawing down the moon, healing rites, etc. Or you could simply, that could be the entirety of your ceremony. So remember that your practice is your practice, which means there's no real wrong way to do it as long as you're not causing harm to yourself or others or to nature and all her beautiful beings. But you have complete creative license over that. So I'd like to invite you with this idea of relational living. How would you maybe alter this ritual in a way to have a fantastically authentic experience? What might that look like? I'd like to hear. Anyone?
I would think about how this could be adapted for maybe a solitary practitioner.
Yeah.
Ways that you could focus it on yourself and focus it, within just yourself. I feel like it could be easily adapted, as long as you have all your materials.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Lexi.
I actually have a family of 4, and I am very interested in taking it and making it, simplifying it so that my two younger children can participate with me and my husband. I am really working to cultivate gratitude and relational living for my whole family, not just for me. And so I think this would be a really great way to do that.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up that you have kids, because inviting our families into our personal practice is a really beautiful thing to share with children and to help them live more intentionally and with more awareness and mindfulness in how they participate with themselves, with their family, and with the world. And I actually had a dream about this ceremony involving kids. I don't have children, but I had a dream about it because I know a lot of my sisters here do have kids. And I had this dream about kind of rewriting the words of the hokey pokey to be about like calling in these elements and kind of doing the motions of like, we invite the north in, we ask the others out, we invite the north in, and we shake it all about. Like,
oh, that's so cute.
And kind of like, and then you state your gratitude and we turn ourselves around, that's what it's all about. And then you go into like the next direction. Things like that. Like, you can totally do anything to make
that is amazing.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to hear the rest of it. You have to finish that.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
I'm not a singer.
I will.
Yeah.
I will say with my kids, they will have like, they like to call them their spells, and they actually have like dance moves that they do with it to help them remember it. And my daughter has one about being brave that she loves, and it's like I take the fear, I take this something, oh man, I'm not going to remember it, but like that is so huge. Like that's what I would do with my family. Actually, when I get the handout, I'm going to do that, but rework it so then that way it's easy for them to remember and participate.
Yeah, with kids, like that kinesthetic connection, or the musicality, adding music to their learning, like it helps with retention. Absolutely. And it's fun.
Yes.
It makes it fun. Awesome. Any other ideas about how you might totally rework this very inviting and open for interpretation ceremony to totally make it your own? What's some other ideas?
Well, this ceremony seems very adaptable to each Sabbat because it's calling in the elements, and that's the focus of every Sabbat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even something as simple as this idea of these quarter candles, that each candle is a very specific color. It could be that you make your own candles, and maybe they're not colored, but maybe they have certain herbs in them, different herbs for different elements, that have those elemental properties. And that's just one simple adjustment that could be made too to make it more your own.
Or throw a crystal in there.
Yes, our lovely crystal mama.
Crystals.
Yes, exactly. So it could be that maybe you're not just lighting a candle. Maybe, like Katie mentioned, you're lighting a candle and you're putting your crystal offering that goes with that element to the altar. Maybe you're doing maybe you're in a place where like there's high fire risk, fire season, like outdoor flames are not permitted. It's against the law, things like that. I know that's super huge and prevalent right now in Australia, not allowed. That you can have battery operated candles. You can ditch the candles entirely and just make it about different types of elemental offerings. You don't have to bring the light into this ceremony in order to call in the elements. Again, you can do anything you want. So thank you for humoring me here and coming up with some ideas. But I encourage you to continue thinking about, how can I make this ritual authentic to who I am, to what I believe, to what I value, to what kind of offerings I wish to give. And honestly, if we're really talking about relational living, ask the element itself what kinds of offerings it wants to receive for this ritual. Let the element tell you what they want. Like they might say, I don't want a candle. I want a bowl of water. I don't want this. I want a handful of dirt in a potted, like a flower pot. I want you to plant a flower pot, like in my honor, kind of a thing. Like you might get totally different feedback and responses about this. So, yeah, lean into that idea. Ooh, we got another awesome idea. I'm just going to share solitary practitioner. Hi, Samantha. Yes. Oh, I'd love it. bribe the birdies with some food. I love it. That's great. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for being here, by the way. All right. So now Lexi has prepared for us a really beautiful craft that she whipped up. Like, I don't understand how she did this in such a short amount of time. It's so great. I'm going to share my screen again with you so that you can see this beautiful handout she created. Again, email me at urbanoracle@gmail.com. In the subject line, say Mabon, request Mabon handout, so that I can send you all the handouts we have for the things we're sharing today. Because Lexi created a really beautiful handout. So let me just share my screen real quick so that you can see her beautiful thing. And Lexi, take it away, sis.
All right. Well, I am a mother of two. I also taught preschool for years and years and years. And I was telling Dean, like, this is my first year officially celebrating Mabon, but I realized that I've actually kind of celebrated this in a way for many years, because celebrating the first of fall has always been a huge thing in my work, but also with my kids. I've always, celebrated the first of the season. And so I really was thinking about a way to make this a very relational thing for my family, for myself. And so this craft actually has a lot of open-ended options. So this is a Mabon Gratitude Apple Sachet. So this is to help increase your gratitude during the autumn season. You can do an individual one, or you can do multiple. So for my family, we're each going to make our own and then hang it on some twine and hang it on our fireplace during this season. So the things that you're going to need for this are 100% cotton fabric, 100% cotton yarn or thread, depending on how you want to sew this. You're going to need either a sewing or yarn needle, the first fallen leaves, dried rosemary, ground cinnamon, and a strip of paper and pencil. If you are not a sewer, you can still do this project not using the fabric. I'll explain at the end, like, some other options on how to make this for people who don't love sewing, but sewing is something that we're teaching my kids right now, so we're all about it. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is take a nature walk and really appreciate the change in the season. I live in Texas, and so we have very few leaves, like the leaves have just now started to fall. I know other places it's actually looking like fall right now. So collect some of those leaves with permission. You'll need about a handful of them for each sachet that you make. And then I would encourage you to leave an offering once taking those leaves to be a part of this ceremony. You are then going to want to cut and sew your sachet once you bring all your stuff home. There's actually a pattern at the end of this document so that you can follow that, or you can make your own. So you're going to want to cut out 2 panels of fabric and then put them together. We kept it simple, so then that way my children are able to sew this. So we kept it to a simple stitch, leaving all of it on the outside. You can whip stitch this so that the seams are nice and tidy. You can also put this on a sewing machine. You just want to make sure that the thread that you're using is earth safe, because a lot of threads are coated in material that makes it a little bit harder to burn. So just be careful about what materials you're choosing to use. So you're going to want to sew the perimeter till you get to a point where you have an opening to start putting in all of your different elements. You're going to want to fill your sachet with intention. So you're going to put in your leaves that are for rebirth and prosperity. You're going to put in your dried rosemary for remembrance and to help you remember what your gratitude was. I use rosemary in everything because I need help with my memory. And then cinnamon for blessing and home protection. So you're going to put those in your sachet. Then you're going to want to take a strip of paper and a pencil and write down things that you are grateful for from the past season or the season that is coming. For my kids, obviously they're little, so that's going to be a little bit difficult. You can simplify this. What are you grateful for in general? So that is what we're going to do, and then stick it inside the sachet. Then you will finish sewing it closed. When you are finished sewing it, I actually put a little loop with the yarn thread that I had to make sure that I can hang it. So you're going to, you don't have to do that, but it makes it nice to hang on your altar or hang on a piece of string. Then before you hang it, after it's all done, you're going to want to hold your sachet and say this incantation. I'm actually going to get my paper because I want to make sure that I can read it all. I am grateful like the leaves who fall dancing round the trees. They know it's time for their demise, yet they spin and move with no cries. They remember the call of the time, death comes first and then the rise. Mabon marks the time of year where light and dark are equal here. May I take the death I need and rise again with this creed. I am grateful for both sides in balance, light and dark arrive.
Yay! I love it.
And of course, make it your own. I also really had a vision too of, since ours are going to be out and we're going to be, interacting with them during this entire season, if you're needing more gratitude, if you're needing that, you can hold your sachet, you can say this incantation again. And this incantation helps charge it, helps you connect with it, and it's also really fun and rhymey. So during Yule, or whenever you are done with your sachet, so if you decide to be done at Samhain instead of Yule, it is time to return it back to the earth. So there are two ways that you can do this. You can either bury it or preferably burn it. The burying 100% cotton is very safe to do. However, a lot of cotton that we have right now is coated in a type of material, like a type of preservative. So you want to make sure that you get 100% cotton. That can still biodegrade, but it just takes a very, very long time for the earth to break it down. Versus fire won't take as long. Our material that we picked out does actually have a dye on it. And so we're going to burn these outside to be safe instead of burning it in our fireplace. You can find cotton that is undyed, unbleached, that would be safe to put into your fireplace. I'm trying to think of anything else. If you do choose to add anything into your sachet, just be aware that you want to make sure that it's something that you can return to the earth and that it's safe. And then look, there's a little pattern for you.
Yay. I love it. I like that you were saying that you could continue to work with your little apple sachet if you wanted to reflect on more gratitude or you needed to bring more awareness into your personal gratitude. And it made me think if you could make like a really tiny little apple one for your keychain or to keep in your pocket, you could actually tote your little apple sachet around with you.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I did think of like having one for your, like, to take on your purse. And my kids, oh my goodness, my cat is like trying to claw my dress. Yeah, that was something that like, I know for me, like as the seasons change, especially when it starts to get more dark, having gratitude becomes a lot harder. especially for those who have seasonal depression. And that is something that for the past couple of years, I've had to really work towards. And I'm really hoping that this will help me and my family do that. So yes, I'm really happy with this one.
I love it. Thank you so much for bringing this to the table and sharing this with everybody, Lexi. I appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Katie is going to lead us through and offer a solitary ritual that you can do for this Sabbat and season. And I'll let her speak into that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I am really pretty new to working with others when it comes to my craft. The first 2 or 3 years of my practice, I was a solitary practitioner, and then I found Urban Oracle and the wonderful Wake the Witch program and Neen, and I'm so happy now that I have a coven of sisters to practice with. But a ritual that I still really love is my Maven solitary ritual. And this one is really special to me because a few years ago, I lived literally 2 blocks away from the cemetery where my maternal grandparents had been laid to rest. So this was a really powerful ritual to me, or for me, when I was a solitary practitioner. And even still now, I mean, I live 2 hours away now from their cemetery, from their resting place, but it's still my family home. I still go there several times a year. So this is very happy to share this solitary ritual with everyone. This has been adapted from several other rituals that I've seen. Anybody else have a Pinterest board dedicated to their witchiness? I have like a huge board with like 15 different sections. So, so this has been adapted from several other wonderful, wonderful practitioners. So for this ritual, you'll really only need two or three things to bring with you. You'll need an apple, any kind of apple will do, and a glass of wine or juice if you prefer. Apple juice or grape juice is best, but go with what feels good in your heart. If you are open to it, because I know this is a very sensitive topic, perform this ritual in a cemetery where a loved one rests. Okay, because this is kind of a connection to your ancestors. If you're not close to a cemetery where you have a loved one that has been laid to rest, that's totally fine. Or if just hanging out in a cemetery isn't your jam, it's totally fine as well. You can try visiting like a place you feel connected to a loved one. So like for me, my grandmother, she at her house, she had crepe myrtles, and she had crepe myrtles all over her house, and that was just like a thing. And the place where I live now, there's crepe myrtles right outside my window. So sitting next to a crepe myrtle would be a really great way to connect with my loved one who's no longer here. So it doesn't have to be a cemetery if that's not your jam. And if you are not going to the cemetery, just make sure you bring your apple, because the apple is really important. The apple represents renewal and is meant to encourage a quick rebirth. Okay, so whenever you are at, wherever you want to be, when you feel ready, cast your circle, call your elements, invite your deities, any other opening tradition that you prefer. This is something that's super easily tailored to however you run your practice. So after you have opened your circle, this is an offering that you can say out loud. Blessing this season of Mabon, the second harvest, the harvest of fruit and wine. Tonight, we honor the darkness and the light, the feminine and the masculine, life and death. The sun gives way to the moon, darkness conquering light, ushering us deeper into the waning year. So if you're not at a cemetery, visualize your loved one's resting place, and then hold the apple out in front of you at heart level. Okay, just the same chest level, chest height, where your heart is resting. Then you can say, essence of life, death, and rebirth, soothe my mourning. Please help me to understand that death is not something to be feared, but a new beginning. If you are in a cemetery, place the apple on the resting place of a loved one. If you are not in a cemetery, save the apple to bury later. Like I said, the apple symbolizes rebirth. So offering or burying the apple represents your hope for the renewal of all life. So now at this time, turn your thoughts to ones of joy. If you have a relationship with a god of wine or the crone, you can honor them in whatever way you feel called. Take your glass of wine or juice and lift it upward. You can say, blessed crone, or whatever deity you are working with. Thank you for keeping me safe this season. God of wine, thank you for your gift of fruit. So this is my favorite part. In a really lighthearted, playful manner, you're going to offer toasts to your ancestors, to the elements, to deities. Take a sip after each toast, and this kind of makes you feel kind of lighter and lighter as you go through these toasts. This is really supposed to be like a giddy, whimsical way to embrace the joyous nature of the season. So when you finish taking your saying your toasts and taking your sips, you can put your glass back down on the ground or your altar or wherever. And then in your final offerings, you can say, blessings this Maven season of bounty and abundance. Spend some time in your circle meditating or singing, listening to songs of autumn. This is a very intimate ritual, not a lot to say, but a lot of reflection. So when you feel complete, when you feel like you are finished with your ritual, you can close the circle in whatever way you feel comfortable. And like I said, this ritual was adapted from many other wonderful rituals and can be adapted in whatever way feels best for your practice. If you would like the full quote unquote script, like Neen said, you can always email Urban Oracle. But this is just really an outline of what you can do. It's very much about connecting with your past, with your ancestors, appreciating the balance between the light and dark, masculine, feminine, and really just offering thanks and being lighthearted and just being happy. Being happy. That's very much what this ritual is about. So thank you, Neen, for letting me share that.
Yeah, thank you so much for contributing it, Katie. Thank you. Oh, I love it. It really inspired, hearing about it, it really inspires me to, I certainly don't have any loved ones buried in a cemetery in Texas. At least not, none to my knowledge. And even though you said I can honor my relatives, you know, from no matter where I am, I actually feel really inspired, and I might, you know, plant this little seed in all of my Coven sisters' heads here who are on the call to consider doing this with me. But I feel really inspired with the idea to go to any nearby cemetery here in Austin and to do this ritual in giving thanks and gratitude for all who have passed in the plot, like all who have passed that are in that cemetery, for all the lessons that they have provided to their loved ones, in teaching them what it means to miss someone, in teaching them that death is not finite, that life continues to go on, and to allow all of us to further lean into and further earn relationship with that beautiful life, death, and rebirth cycle. And just for all the magic that these transitionary states bring to our individual awareness and how we navigate and operate our lives from. I feel kind of inspired to just go to a cemetery and thank like all those who have passed for all the lessons that their transition has provided for those in their lives, and even to complete strangers. And also to obviously weave in the aspect and gratitude of this season. But what a cool ritual. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that, Katie.
I love that idea of going to the cemetery and offering this to everyone, every loved one in the cemetery. I think that's great. I'd be totally down for that.
Sweet. Road trip. We're doing it.
Yes.
Come.
I'm coming.
Samantha, where are you located?
What do you mean?
Oh, not Amanda. I said Samantha.
Oh, you know. But by the way, I would love to go.
You're in Montana. That's where I'm from, baby boo. I love you. I'm so obsessed with my home. Montana's my home and my heart. I'm so excited you're joining us. Yes. I'm desperately trying to move back to Montana, which is why I posted this on a Montana pagan group. So thank you for being here. I'd love to build community back home. So I'm so excited. That's awesome. Yes, a bit of a drive for you. Anyway, maybe you can report back to us and let us know if you did something of your own making in this way. Yes. Yes, there really are. Thanks for being here. Awesome. Cool. Okay. So I'm going to share with you a Mabon recipe that I actually eat like all the time. I really love this recipe. But it's a great thing to eat during this season. It's perfect. It's using things that are applicable to the season itself. They're in season for the season. It's apple centric, of course. And I'm also going to give you some modifiers. So this one's really easy. So I encourage you to write it down because it's not a lot of stuff. So depending on how many you're feeding, you're going to want to use half an apple per person. So half an apple per person. If you got one of those little containers that keeps onions fresh after you cut into them, those little spherical containers, that's what I put the other half of my apple in to keep it lasting longer for the next day or two before I use the other half. But half an apple per person. What you're going to do is you're going to dice your apple up, preheat your oven to 325 degrees. And while your oven's preheating, you're going to need a cookie sheet that has a lip on it. Okay, so a lipped rimmed cookie sheet. And you'll dice up your apple, and then you're going to put your diced apple onto the cookie sheet. I recommend using ghee, purified butter. Using ghee, use a spatula to kind of scoop your desired amount of ghee out onto the cookie sheet and just kind of stir and mix around your apple slices so that they're getting really coated with the ghee, and so is the pan at the same time. So there won't be any sticking when it's done, and all of that ghee is eventually going to go into your dish. So it'll add healthy fat, creaminess, good flavor, and make the meal that much more delicious. You'll sprinkle some cinnamon over your apple slices. And then while the oven's still preheating and your apples are all ready, then you're going to prepare the oatmeal. So you'll pour in some oatmeal. Just keep in mind that as soon as you add water to it, it's going to expand. So don't go nuts with how much oatmeal you pour into your bowl. I like to add minced or finely chopped walnuts. Walnuts have really good, very healthy essential oil, like essential fats for us to eat, that are very different from people who consume a ton of almonds. Like walnuts really have their own magic properties. So I like to incorporate walnuts into my oatmeal. I do just a splash of almond milk. I'm a dairy-free person in terms of I can't have milk or cheese, so I use nut milk. So a little splash of almond milk. And then if you have access to essential oils that are safe for you to consume, like supplements, I have an immunity boosting blend that has a lot of these fall spices incorporated into it. A lot of those fall spices are really good for safeguarding our immune system. So I work with doTERRA oils, so I use their On Guard. I don't know if Young Living seeds is safe to consume internally, but if you have something like that, I put 2 drops of On Guard in the bottom of my bowl and then put my other ingredients in. And then you're gonna bake your apple for 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, while the apples are baking, I put a tea kettle on medium heat. And just for the 10 minutes, I allow it to warm up and boil. And by the time my apples are done, the water's done. And so, you put your water in your oatmeal and then you just scoop off and slide off all your apple slices into the dish. It's super warming, the cinnamon and also the spices in the On Guard and the apples, they're very warming to your digestive system. If you're a person who has very slow digestion, or you suffer from constipation, things like that, or bowel irregularity, oatmeal and apples, both of cooked apples, not raw, but cooked apples and oatmeal, both of those things are very good at stimulating your digestion and help getting things moving in a more regular way. So it's also, and it does that because it's high in fiber. So there's a lot of fiber in this dish. So it's great for your parents too. Fiber is more and more necessary for as people age. Our bodies need more fiber to self-regulate. So it's a really awesome recipe. Now this is so not Mabon centric, but I have to tell you this. I've altered this recipe and used half of a peach and a handful of blueberries and everything else the same. And oh my God, it's so good. I totally recommend you try it. It's amazing. When I do peach and blueberries, I reduce the amount of time because 10 minutes is a little too long for the blueberries. So I do 9 minutes for peach and blueberry combo. But it's delicious. So that is my baked apple oatmeal with walnut dish that I'd like to share to you, and I hope you like it. It's really, really yummy. Any questions about that? Before we move on?
I missed the part where the temperature of the oven.
Yeah, 325.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I am so glad that you shared that recipe because I had all these grandiose ideas like make an apple pie from scratch. And then like the more I think about it, the less I'm inclined to do it. But I feel like I could do that recipe.
Yeah, so it takes 1 to 2 minutes to prep, especially if you're doing it in the order I shared it. Like preheat the oven, dice your apples, put the apples on the sheet, and then build your bowl. So like you're able to kind of like get multitask while other things, the oven's heating or putting the apples in, you're doing the last finishing touches on your oatmeal bowl or whatever. So everything's ready. You just pull it out and slide it off. But yeah, 1 to 2 minutes prep and then 10 minutes cook time. It's pretty fast, super easy. Yeah, I love it. I eat it all the time, guilty. Okay. Okay. So the last thing I'm going to share with you, as our agenda stated, was a guided mirror exercise. So how many of you actually brought a handheld or mirror for this exercise? Just out of curiosity, because that'll determine how I give the instructions.
Me.
I have a larger mirror in my craft room that I was going to use.
Okay. Does anybody not have a mirror? No? Okay. Okay. Fabulous. All right, I got it. Okie dokie. So let's talk about mirror exercises. So as Katie mentioned, Mabon, we have equal hours. We have equal hours of light and dark. For this particular season, it's a night of balance. Mabon is, a series of nights of balance, celebrating balance. It's a Sabbat of divine balance, feminine and masculine energy. It's the pause between the last inhale of summer and that first exhale of fall, and that exhale that just keeps flowing out on and on and on, continuing to release until the winter solstice and Sabbat of Yule in December. So that waning period, it's that slow dissemination, that slow release, that slow, gradual purging period of releasing things that are no longer serving us. And it's a really profound time for self-reflection, introspection. So, and cultivating a deeper relationship and further earning relationship with our shadow selves. So mirror work is a really powerful shadow working tool. If you haven't experienced it in this way before. And surprisingly, mirror work, it can bring up some really shocking things. So mirrors help us define and reaffirm our sense of self. Mirrors help regulate our emotions, and they have the ability to show us things long lingering in our padlock protected mental clouds. So mirrors have the potential to draw out the unseen, the unfelt, the unprocessed within ourselves. And since this celebration today is to discuss this concept of a feast of balance, we typically utilize mirrors to show us what we see every day. But we're going to utilize mirrors in this exercise to show us what we don't know, Okay, so I'm going to invite you to have your go over to wherever your mirror is, or have your mirror nearby. And what we do in this exercise is we're going to start with soul. So anytime you're doing mirror work as part of a inner working practice, soul gazing needs to be involved. So soul gazing, the windows to the soul is through the eyes. So to do mirror work, you basically are looking at your own reflection. You're looking through the windows of your own soul at yourself in the mirror, looking through your eyes at your own eyes. Okay? And when we soul gaze with ourselves, the rest of our face and the rest of our surroundings ends up getting a soft focus to it. Okay? Because it's not important. We don't care about what's around us. We want to see what's inside us. Okay, so we're looking at ourselves through the eyes to kind of access what's going on inside of ourselves. Now, for some people to do that can be really uncomfortable. It can make people feel like really uncomfortable in their own skin, like this is super awkward staring at myself. And so your gaze might shift and rattle. You might like, I'm going to look at my forehead instead, or my mouth, because that makes me feel less weird. You just work towards bringing those eyes back to your eyes. Yourself is not going to harm you by looking into you. Okay, so you are your best friend. So don't worry. Every aspect of yourself has your own back, but they are going to reveal things to you that you either are not aware, things that you're not aware of, things that you need to address. And these are loving suggestions of like, things would be a little bit easier for you in this particular area if you were to really reflect on this thing. So those are the kinds of things that are going to surface for you when you do mirror work with yourself. Now, you can soul gaze with your significant other, and soul gazing, like staring into the eyes of your significant other as an exercise, is a really powerful way to open up your heart center. It literally connects that. It releases the serotonin. It really, you'll feel this connected channel that kind of swoops in both of you, like a figure eight, like an infinity symbol between your heart and your eyes with your partner. And if you've had other lives with your significant other, it's really possible that you will start to see the soft focus of the rest of their face shapeshift into other faces that you completely recognize. And it's the face of the person who they used to be when you shared other lives with them. So shapeshifting with faces is something that happens a lot when you're doing soul gazing. When you're soul gazing with yourself in mirror work, your own face can shapeshift into other lives you've had. And you'd be like, oh my God, I recognize that. That's me, but another me. So just be aware that you're not losing your mind. It's something that Okay, so for this exercise, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And all the while I'm asking you these questions, I just want you to listen to the question and let it kind of seep in and see what your mental cloud, your padlock mental cloud of all this stored information you don't have knowledge to, where all your implicit biases are stored, and repressed memories and things like that. Let your mental cloud decide what it thinks about that information and see if it has any nuggets to offer you that you will see reflected in your face or through your eyes, or maybe it's a memory that bubbles up, or a feeling, or a thought, what have you. See what bubbles up and surfaces the whole time while you're looking at yourself in the mirror. I'll be asking you, do you see this in your face? Do you see this? What about this? Things like that. Now, there's multiple components to this exercise. And if at any point you feel overwhelmed, just focus on staring at your own face. Okay? Staring at your own face and acknowledging what surfaces for you. I encourage you to write anything down that bubbles up for you to say like, oh, that's interesting. I don't want to forget that. Write a little note. But if you have the capacity to go beyond that step, the capacity to go beyond that step, what I would encourage you to do, we're talking about a feast of balance here. Okay. Now, our right side of our body is where our divine masculinity resides. Okay, our divine masculine exists on the right half of our entire body, and the left side is our divine feminine. So when a memory or a thought or an answer or a response, while doing this exercise, any insights that are being offered to you through staring at and soul gazing with yourself, when they arise, I want you to see if you can identify, did this insight arise on the left side of my face, or was it on the right side? Like, is it something I saw on this side or felt on this side? Okay, and it's not always going to exist on one side or the other, but if it does, I want you to make a note of it, because if you are someone who knows you could really use and want to deepen your divine femininity, or you really want to work on and strengthen and deepen your divine masculine self, if you feel an imbalance within yourself around those things, whatever bubbles up for you, on depending on the side of your face that it exists, is a cue for you that if you were to heal and focus on that thing that presented itself, ergo, you will heal and further rise up your connection with that side of divinity. Okay, so this is a way to learn a new way to work on healing your divine masculine and divine feminine, bringing you more balance within yourself and within your life. Sound good? Okay. So looking at your mirrors, grounding into your body, allowing your breath to fully nourish you, breathing in intentionally and slowly, allowing your breath to peek into the belly low. Try to bring your breath low into your belly. If it helps, you can cup your hands over your tummy and allow your breath to push your belly away from the body, and slowly collapse in your hands on your exhales. Very mindful with the breath. Control your breath as you slowly draw it in, just like you can control the amount of water you sip up through a straw. Control your breath as you draw it in, and control it as you release it slowly out. Try to get this beautiful rhythmic motion of the breath, looking at your reflection in the mirror. And if this is the first time you've ever done mirror work, just tell yourself in your mind's eye as you're looking at yourself that you're doing this exercise to better know yourself. And maybe you can make confessions to yourself like, I'm a little scared, or I'm a little nervous to look at myself in this way. But give yourself the permission and ask yourself for assistance to say like, hey, I'm kind of freaked out right now. This feels really weird. I hope and ask that you can support me while I embark on this journey to learn more about myself. Okay, so ask your own self, ask your highest self to support you in this process. Breathing in intentionally and slowly. Really gazing deep into the eyes with an openness, with a curiosity, with a willingness to peer into oneself, peer into yourself. Gazing at yourself in your mirror, I want you to think about or consider or feel into, lean into, still breathing. What do you see reflected back at you? What do you see reflected back at you? What is your highest self and soul mirroring for you in this particular moment? Do you see your childhood when you look into the eyes of your own face?
Mm-mm.
Do you see your childhood? Do you see the playground you grew up playing on? Do you see the neighborhood that you grew up in? Do you see your ancestors reflected in your face? Your grandparents, perhaps, or your parents, or your great-grandparents? Do you see lessons you have learned reflected back at you? Do you see arguments that you've had with other people reflected back at you? Breathing deeply. Do you see your triumphs, your achievements reflected back at you? Do you see heartbreak reflected back at you? Disappointment? Do you see your own perseverance and resiliency reflected back at you? Do you see your guides in your own face? Or the elements? Do you see your level of nourishment, the foods you eat, or the amount of water you drink or don't drink? Do you see that reflected back at you? Is your body trying to connect with you in this moment? Do you see your gifts looking back at you? Do you see just how much you are not your body reflected back at you? Do you see your relationship to an infinite cycle reflected back at you. A cycle that has no beginning and has no end. That life, death, and rebirth cycle. Do you see your relationship to that cycle reflected back at you? You see the careers you've had reflected back at you. You see the responsibilities you've been given reflected back at you. And if little has surfaced for you so far, I want to encourage you to always ask, when you do mirror work, to ask yourself, your highest self, show me what I most need to see and understand in this moment. Show me what I most need to see and understand in this moment. Breathing deeply. And when you're ready, silently thank your highest self for participating with you and holding space for you while you completed this work. Make any final notes that you have, and then rejoin the call when you're ready. Now, this is an exercise that you can actually add to that original corn moon ritual. If you are doing your corn moon or harvest moon ritual around a campfire, you can perform this very exercise while at the fire. And by doing so, how I would suggest you do it is that with your handheld mirror, you sit profile to the fire so that only one side of your divinity is lit by the reflection of that fire. And go through a series of questions that you can ask yourself and see if something's reflected in your, say, feminine side. And then you're going to ask the same question, but by shifting your position. So then only your masculine side is lit by the flame. Okay. So that's kind of an interesting and fun way you can perform mirror work as part of an even larger ritual when working with the element of fire around a fire. And it was even more beneficial to do a ritual like that in a group, like we did today, so that as everyone goes through their exercise, then when they're done asking questions of themselves on both sides, they can then share with the group what bubbled up and came up to them. So that's what I would like to do right now, is open the call and ask y'all to unmute yourselves and share, if you want, what came up for you during this exercise.
I'll go ahead and go first.
Betsy?
I saw my whole face change into my childhood face, but it was very, very prevalent that I understood how wise that child was and is. That child is still a part of who I am now. And yeah, that was very healing. I, because when you think about, at least when I think about being a kid, I think of all the stupid stuff I did. And, but also that child had to learn so much so fast. And that child had to really learn her intuition. And connecting back to that has just been a journey that I've been on. And just realizing that, yeah, she has been doing this a lot longer
than I realize. And she's very wise and she knows what she's doing.
I love it. Thank you, Lexi. Does anybody else like to share? Just so you know, this is a very safe space. So it's absolutely okay to, mirror work can be very jarring and shocking and surprising. So if you feel emotional right now, like, I am here to hold you and support you in your experience. So please feel that this is a very safe space where your feelings and your experience will be heavily honored and supported in this moment.
Well, I saw dark circles underneath my eyes and I immediately felt tired. So I went and laid down for a second.
How's your pregnancy, Mama?
It's so much better, but naps are good.
Yes. Gotta get that rest.
Yes.
Anybody else like to share what they experienced?
I just saw how dehydrated I am. And a lot of pain. A lot of things have happened recently, and that I'm wearing that pain visibly. So I didn't really see past what I'm wearing on the outside. So it's definitely difficult, but something I'd like to try again in the future once I've, managed what I'm going through right now.
Yeah. Where do you feel you can offer and extend yourself compassion in what you did realize today? What might that look like?
I'm not sure. Maybe that I'm not as bad of a mother as mine is. My son just had surgery last week, and I was in his room with him, and he said, "Thank you for being here with me." And when he said that the other day, I just had this moment of, well, how bad of a mom have I been that he's super grateful, that I would give him my time. But now I'm realizing that he's just expressing gratitude. It's not necessarily that I've been terrible the other times.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so more compassion for sure as far as my decisions and my actions as a mother.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Would anybody else like to speak into their experience?
I would like to keep my experience to myself, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks, Katie. All right. Okay, so when it comes to mirror work, I invite you to a little mirror challenge. Okay, because with this season, within the sacred year, sacred cycle of the seasons, we are entering into that waning period. We're entering into this contracted, it's starting to become a more and more contracted state until we are at the darkest night of the year. So it's during this time that self-reflection is, it's like the best time of the year to do work like this, to work on your shadows and to begin those descents. Obviously, if you feel to do deep shadow work, like deep traumas and triggers, please get a mentor. Please have the tools to equip you to do that safely. There's a lot of ways to do deep trauma trigger shadow work wrong or incorrectly in a way that you just end up reliving all your own wounds. It's very unuseful. So please go get a mentor to help you through that process so that you are very well equipped and protected to do that effectively. We have a free karma cleanse that we offer on our YouTube channel, which is a great exercise to do again and again, walking a new limiting belief you have about yourself through that karma cleanse. This is a great season to dust off that karma cleanse exercise and rework it within yourself. And this mirror work can offer you some really lovely insights in areas and aspects that you can focus on and further lean into. We are super supportive here at Urban Oracle. So if you'd like to join our online private community, we can be with you as you tend to your own shadows throughout this season. We're here to support you. So that's something you can consider as well. I personally believe that all grief tending work should be done in community, not on your own. It's important to give ourselves permission to feel, and it's even more important to allow other people to support us and hold us while we grieve and tend to our personal wounds. So it's not a space where we give each other advice and stuff. It's a space where we hold each other in respect and in light and in love, and allow each other to breathe and express authentically from where we are as we are with what we've got. So a mirror challenge that I offer and invite to you. It's great if you find a buddy to do this with. Do it with a buddy so you have an accountability partner. But basically, you both agree to do mirror work at the same time every day for 1 to 3 minutes. It's a really short commitment. It's just 1 to 3 minutes. Okay, where you guys are going to set an alarm. You're both going to do your mirror work, and then you're going to call each other or talk to each other about what came up for you. Okay, so you're getting into a practice of sharing your inner world outwardly with someone you trust and value, and they're doing the same for you. You guys are having an equal exchange there. And it's when you do something consistently and regularly, it's allowing you to actually track your progress when you do something that regularly. So I encourage to do this challenge for either 21 days or 30 days. Okay, either 21 or 30 days. Okay. Yeah, so just write down in your exercises what you see. You could do voice recordings of what came up for you in each little particular session. Evolve how you participate in your mirror work exercises. Get as creatively as you want. You could focus on different topics for each time you get in front of the mirror, but that you're doing mirror work for 1 to 3 minutes every day. Okay. And if you want to read a little bit more about kind of more of the inner workings of mirror work, there's a great article at lonerwolf.com /mirror work guide / but lonerwolf.com, and then kind of search their platform for mirror work guidance. They speak into that as well. And I will also leave you with the 4 mirror laws. And this is just something it's not only, this is more relevant, the 4 mirror laws, they're relevant for your interactions with other people when other people are being a mirror for you. So the first mirror law is that anything that bothers, irritates, or annoys you that you would want to change about the other person, that's something that's inside of you. So first mirror law is anything that bothers, irritates, or annoys you, or is something you want to change about the other person, that's something that's inside of you. Mirror law number 2 is that everything that another person criticizes, fights, or judges about you, if it bothers or hurts you, that's something that's repressed inside of you and is something that you should probably work on. Okay, so anything that someone criticizes, fights, or judges about you that bothers and hurts you when they do that is something that's repressed inside of you and is something you should work on, or would be beneficial if you decided to work on. The third mirror law is anything that someone criticizes, judges, or wants to change about you that doesn't affect you in any way when they criticize, judge, or try to change you. If it doesn't affect you, that belongs to them. That has nothing to do with you. That has everything to do with them and their own stuff, their own baggage. If you're not affected by it, it's not yours. And the fourth mirror law is that everything you like about another person or what you love in another person is something that's also inside of you. And you are recognizing your own qualities in other people. Questions? Any questions about any of it? We're coming to the end of our Sabbat share.
Will you have that mirror exercise as one of your handouts?
I will. Yes, I will. Yep. Yep, yep. Does anybody want to share any other ways that they celebrate the Mabon Sabbath?
I did want to share that I really liked Katie's solitary practice, and I work with Persephone, so I've been looking for a way to honor and celebrate her when she returns to the underworld on Mabon. So I'm just going to tweak it, and instead of an apple, I'm going to use a pomegranate. They're also associated with resurrection, death, eternal life, and add in, connecting with ancestors, but also my guides, and just celebrating the things that I have learned from her while she's been here. So thank you for sharing that, Katie.
I love it.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to share any other ways, either that they have celebrated Mabon or that they might celebrate this year? Okay. No pressure. All right, loves. I really appreciate y'all being here. Again, please email urbanoracle@gmail.com if you would like to receive these handouts, and just in the subject line say request Mabon handouts, and I'll send those out to those who send me a message. And at this point, I'm actually going to stop the recording for our YouTube video, and I'm just going to stay on the call for a little bit if any of you guys would like to unmute your mic and just chat, hang out, catch up, get to know one another. I don't know if Samantha, if you can stay or not, but if you guys just want to see what's going on with everybody, I'm going to stop the recording, okay?